and it is the Springboks against the Lions, test 4 if you count the South Africa A game, but this is the main show. This is for all the marbles. It is in Cape Town Stadium, yet again in Cape Town. Saturday 7th of August, tomorrow. Kickoff is 5 o'clock in British Standard Time in Britain and Ireland, 6 o'clock in South Africa.
That's right.
And it is going to be a doozy of a game.
That's
the
right.
referee, this time, same refereeing team, but this time Matthew Reynal gets the whistle, the Frenchman, which was definitely got some different implications to the sort of laissez-faire attitude of the...
the Kiwis are more laissez-faire than the French, certainly when it
Truly.
comes to pernickety scrum calls. This could benefit, well, it depends which
It
side
could benefit anybody and everybody and nobody at the same time. Matthew Reynal has the whistle for this huge game. Nick Berry and Ben O'Keefe this time on the sidelines with Marius Jonker, Warren Gatlin's nemesis, in the TMO box again. It's going to be, this is it. This is the biggest game, as we said at the top of the show, perhaps since the World Cup final. The deciding fixture in a Lions series. It's what we all wanted to see, and as much as the Boks have the momentum after last week, the ball at the same time, you could argue, is in the Lions' court. Each of them have won a game. Each of them have painted a pretty convincing picture, and it's all going down to this last test. And I gotta say, both sides very much feel like they're in with a good chance here.
Absolutely true. 1-1 is what we have ourselves. Just a little bit of history on this matchup. We do have, since their first meeting in 1891, the Lions and South Africa have contested 13 different series. South Africa have won 8 to the Lions 4 so far, and one drawn series in 1955 as well. The two teams in total, they've played 48 matches. And in terms of the head-to-head on the matches front, we have South Africa ahead with 24-18 as of last. That's including last week, or the first two of this test as well. And there were 6 draws as well in the history. So it's tight with South Africa edging it if the history books are to be believed in this instance. But definitely an historic series. Just in other bits of things, we've definitely had our fair share of controversies in this particular tour as well. Like we've had, as we were alluding to, the off the pitch antics of Razzie and then Warren and then TMO Gate and all manner of the usual kinds of colour that goes on in the weeks surrounding these rugby games, because obviously there's all kinds of news goes into the Lions. But what we love on this podcast is that it's going to come down to the 80 minutes on the pitch. All of that stuff will be cast aside. Totally. The opening whistle will go, and then the better side will win.
This is going to be decided. This is going to be decided by the team that performs better. That wins those small battles, that goes to the extra edge, that gets the better of things like the wrestling match in the line-out, the wrestling match in the scrum, the wrestling match under the high ball, the wrestling match at the breakdown. I mean, it has turned into really just a physical contest in so many ways, and it is going to come down to which side can go outperform the other and find that sort of extra level of momentum and energy that sees them over the line. It's going to be one of those games, I think, very tight, very interesting. You were going through the history there. I mean, in the professional era and the pro era, it's 1-1. It's 1-1. They had the game in they had the series in 97, which the Lions won very famously. They had the series in 09, which is the best series ever. That was won by the Boks, but an incredible test series. And now we have this one. All 3 have taken place with the Boks as world champions.
That's right.
All 3 of the Lions have come in locked and loaded. It's 1-1. It would be a tremendous win for the Lions. It would cement Gatlin's legacy if they could do this as the greatest, perhaps, Lions coach of all time.
I'd say so, yeah.
I mean, win in Australia, draw against New Zealand, beat the Boks. Heck of a record if he can hold on to it. That would be just an extraordinary return. And likewise for this Bok team, I mean, it's a chance for history themselves. If you can win a World Cup as the team in 07 did and back it up with a victory over the best that 4 of the world's very best nations can put together, it is history cementing as well. You go down as one of the all-time great sides. So it's massive stakes on the line, huge audience. It captures the imagination of us all. And it is just going to be one heck of a test match coming up on Saturday.
On Saturday, great show. It's going to be Cape Town's the scene of it, and glory or death, with my shielder on it. I don't know. It's going to be a hard fought, very physical test. As we've been treated to 2 so far, I've enjoyed both games for different reasons as well, and I dare say the third will deliver on some of the dramatic elements of rugby. We'll see good clutch. I dare say we'll see controversy a little bit, but we'll also just see raw physicality and a lot of big smashing hits going in, and as like for these Lions, it's the very end of a long season for them, and for the Boks, they're obviously just warming into their season too.
Somewhat, but it's also just like for bodies that are very fresh, that are coming back from injury. We saw Peter Steff fall last week. Like it's a heck of an energy shift for them, going from no rugby at all in many cases to the most intense rugby there is, week after week after week. And one wonders, the extent to which the emotional pitch was reached last week and how easy that might be to replicate or not.
It's very, very tough to say, but we do know that. But we do have the teams as we do it, but we know that there are a few bodies down, as you alluded to, Peter Steff, but there are men down on both. But we do have the teams as we shoot this, which is good. I suppose we'll start with the Boks and just rattle off their team to face in Test 3. They have stuck broadly to what they found last week. Obviously a few changes forced, but we have Kitshoff, Mbanambi and Malherbe in the front row. You have Etzebeth and Lou Diager coming in to partner him. Franco Mostert shifts to the back row to cover the injured Peter Steff. He combines with Khaleesi, and Jasper Wiese keeps his jersey from last week at number 8.
No Dwayne Vermeulen, despite reports.
Yeah, there were reports he was back in the camp, but he's not fit enough to make the squad, make the 23 in this instance. The back line then, you have Cobus Reinach straight in there for the injured Faf, leaving Herschel on the bench. Probably a wise call because Reinach's excellent as well. Pollard, that complete Pollard is obviously there. Deolinde and Am, the immovable centres, as opposed to the Lions chopping and changing.
The best unit of the whole series from either team. The best probably. Sort of combined unit.
I think so. They've done their job pretty flawlessly so far. And then Mapimpi, Colby and LaRue backing up their back three. That's started all 3 tests. And they are the World Cup winners so as well. And Mapimpi has been the standout performer. Willie LaRue was excellent in Test 1, I thought. And has had some good moments in Test 2. But Mapimpi is Mr. Consistency. He gave away a couple of penalties, but he also grabbed a try.
And they were on the margins of those pens. I mean, he was so tenacious at the breakdown.
Yeah, that was where they're from. Just the bench then, just to round it off, we have Malcolm Marks, Inyakanya and Koch, the same bomb squad of a front row that really won their battle last week. Marco van Staden and Quagga Smith offering the back row options, but they've gone back to a 5-3 split. You have Herschel Yankees, Mornay Stain and Damian Willemse. Mornay Stain on the bench here like it's 2009 all over again.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like that Bok team, like there's good and bad. I don't think it's as good as the team that played the second test. That's for sure. I think Peter Steff. I mean, we spoke.
You take Faf and Peter Steff out of any team, they're going to be weaker for it.
We spoke at length about Peter Steff in this series, and he was delivering on it in the build up, in everything. He's the absolute linchpin to what they do. He's the yin to Khaleesi's yang as far as their offense as well. He plays one wing and Khaleesi plays the other. And then also on defence, he's usually the guy leading the inside of the line, where Am leads the outside, he leads the inside.
So that all changes. Mostert did very well when he slotted in there by necessity towards the end of last week's test.
I'm curious to see how well he'll adapt to playing wider on offence, or will they get him to adapt to playing wider on offence, or will they sacrifice that part of their game? I suspect no. I suspect they'll try and go with a like for like, but it's definitely a different job for Mostert in that department.
That's true. And also the 5-3-ness. The 5-3-ness has not
no
worked
locks
for the
on the
Boks
bench
in quite a long time.
Marvin Ory, I mean, maybe the guys will come in and tell me he's injured, but he was a guy who featured against, I think, Georgia. But he's a guy I have a decent amount of time for, and I would have said maybe a guy you could have stuck in on the bench. But interesting, they got Mornay in there, which tells me that they aren't 100% on Pollard's fitness, and they don't necessarily trust Willemse at 10, which is curious to me because Willemse has been awesome. He's a utility back. He will feature in this game. But I would have trusted him.
They probably don't want to trust him in the last 10 minutes of the series. Maybe. Well, Mornay's definitely not young man, and he is a proven goal kicker, and certainly he's got all his status as great of the game is already secured. This is just another legacy game for him. If he can come on and kick a winning kick, like stranger things have happened. Like it could come down to Mornay's boot at the end of this all. Yeah.
Personally, I don't like it. I don't like having a guy on your bench if plan A is to not use him at all.
I know. I agree with that.
And personally, I think plan A should, looking at this bench, plan A should be keep Pollard on.
I think that is plan A. I think as long as he can last, he will be kept on out there. So that is a bit of a waste of a journey. Well, it's also just they landed on the 6-2 when they were struggling for their bench options. They just weren't working. That was in World Cup year. They couldn't find something that worked. They stumbled on 6-2 as a solution. It works for their style of play. They deviated from it in Test 1, lost. They went back to it Test 2, won comfortably. Now they're deviating from it again. Will it be the wise thing to do? It is like obviously you take Peter Steff out, maybe they're just balancing what weapons do we have to deploy, what do we need, but it's curious. I haven't seen 5-3, although it is the standard, the norm in most places. I haven't seen it work for the Springboks in a while.
No, so. and I personally, I just Willems's form is such that I would have trusted him if he needs to. If Pollard goes down, I would have trusted Willems to try and take on that role of 10.
The other news is Reinach. We touched on it. Him straight in and Herschel staying on the bench. I think makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like he's more of a like for like kind of guy with Faf. He will drive a great tempo. Northampton fans know he's absolutely lethal himself. He drives a wicked tempo and just grabs tries as well.
Yeah, even at the World Cup in his brief spell, he racked up a hat trick in about 20 minutes or something ridiculous. Yeah. He was all over the place. He's got a lot of pace. He's got a decent kicking game, not as good a kicking game perhaps as Faf, although some of Faf's kicking is loose as well.
He will be required to kick a lot.
He will, and they listen. The strength of their kicking game really is their defense.
Their subsequent defense. Even their loose kicks aren't that loose because the defensive line is set. They're all ready for a kick anyway.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be stressing too much. I'd say he'll do a fine job at that, but he does have the potential to bring some great tempo and to just be another element. He's another blitzer on D, so they definitely like that. He offers similar things to what Faf will offer. He's
tough book. He's another tough book.
He's quick as well. He gets off the line and just gets in people's faces, which is what Faf tries to do on defense. I think that's the biggest point of difference between him and Faf and Herschel. Herschel isn't a defensive presence really at all. He can bring a bit of tempo,
cover a chip kick in the backfield.
More traditional scrum.
Yeah, he is a more Kiwi style halfback, which is great to have on the bench. You can inject that tempo. That's kind of what you want. But bringing Reinach in, good luck to him. His first start of the series. And then I suppose the Lions as well. We have a Lions team.
We do. I'll run through it now. They've made 6 changes.
That's right.
They've brought back in a number of Welsh heads. It was as diminished a team from a Welsh point of view as they've had in since Gatlin's been involved last week.
And look what happened.
Yeah, and look what happened. Right, here we go. So Wyn Jones comes back in at loose head. I think if he was fit, he was always going to take that role. He's the form guy.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a job for him against France Malherbe, though. We haven't seen that picture yet.
Well, it allows Mako to come off the bench, where he has looked a little better than his starts on the tour so far. It also gets Sutherland out of there, which is necessary based on his showings.
For Sutherland's form,
the 2 test showings, the South Africa A and the Stormers game the week before, he's been brutal. So
and I think he's carrying something. I just don't think he's right. He's all over the place. So Wyn Jones comes in, and we will have the Sarries derby off the bench with Cock and Mako to face off against each other.
That is interesting.
Ken Owens takes the jersey at hooker. Tadhg Furlong in a tight head. Itoje and Alan Wyn Jones in the second row. Nothing changes there. The back row, same back row, 3 tests in a row. Courtney Laws, Tom Curry, Jack Conan. Ali Price comes in to replace Conor Murray. Obviously had a great first test. Murray had a poor second test. Seems no-brainery. Dan Biggers keeps his jersey at 10, just the most solid, best 10 on the tour. I don't think there's much arguments there. Bundy Aki comes in at 12. They drop Chris Harris pretty harshly from the 23, but they obviously want Bundy in there to bring some defensive hustle and some offensive directness. He partners Robbie Henshaw, who's back out to 13, where he does like to do his best work. And then the back 3, there's a couple of key changes as well. Duhan van der Merwe, Josh Adams and Liam Williams.
Straight in there
is right. I mean, the game last week was crying out for him and they didn't have him on the bench.
That's true.
The bench options for the Lions, they've gone with Cowan Dickey at hooker, Mako Vunipola covering prop with Sinclair. Adam Beard comes in for Tadhg Byrne covering lock. Sam Simmons comes in for Faletau covering the back row. Murray, then they've also gone 5-3. Murray keeps his place on the bench. Finn Russell comes in for his first contribution to the test series back from injury, and Elliot Daly keeps his 23 jersey. I know you've been frustrated with his play. The thing that jumps out with me is that, and listen, Gats may end up being egg on my face, but it was not what I had anticipated for this Lions team. It's like my whole perspective on it was that the loose forward positions and even to some extent the tight forward positions, certainly I would include the locks potentially in this as well, like they are extraordinarily attritional, and for my money there's not a lot between a lot of these guys. Like I don't think the difference between Tom Curry and Hamish Watson is much at all really, and I think really a fresher, better, more focused version of either one of them is better than a drained version of either one of them. So I think I've been saying this since more or less the beginning of the series, that the best approach for the Lions is to use all their weapons, is to do what the Boks can't necessarily do, and just change their loose forwards from week to week without weakening the team.
Yeah.
And yet instead, and I would include some tight forwards in this, like I'm shocked that Jamie George isn't getting any minutes. I really, really rate him. I would have started him going into week 1. I'm shocked that he doesn't get a minute in this series, and I'm not 100% convinced that that's the correct management of resources in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, I do like to see Adam Beard coming in there, but Tyke Byrne was one of the players of the Six Nations getting in.
He's only had 16 minutes of game time in the Test series, whereas Courtney Laws has had north of 100.
Yeah, and Courtney Laws has been great, but by the end of last week he was really sucking diesel. He was struggling like they all were.
Yeah.
And Alan Wynne Jones, is a phenomenal player, but he's an old,
dislocated his shoulder 3 weeks ago, and now he's playing 3 tests in a row.
He's mixing it, no question. He's still got all of the skills, the one-handed line-out takes.
Top the tackle account in both weeks.
I mean, more power to him, but there's some powerful men. Johnny Hill,
Big Ian Henderson.
Adam
Beard now is getting in this time, but only on the bench.
And I rate Adam Beard a lot, and I definitely am happy to see him in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily wrong, it's not a fatal thing, but I'm very surprised to see so many class players. There isn't that big a difference between them and the Test starters, especially when you consider how the warm-ups went, where not that many combinations were worked with, that he's decided basically just to settle on the one team. He obviously values the solidity of that over this sort of fresh energy that a lot of these hungry class players in the forward pack, particularly for me, could give to him.
Yeah.
That's what stands out to me, is the same back row 3 tests in a row that would just, on the face of it, no matter who the back row is, wouldn't have been what I would have thought they would have gone for.
The way these games have gone, it's been all mauls, it's been all rucks, it's been all very tight physical play. It's been exchanges in those little tight areas inside of the halfback. So there's a lot of miles on those clock, especially, and it's the end of these guys' season, as we were saying. So it remains to be seen. Hopefully they can step up. It is only one more test, and it is like you want to chop and change, but also you can see in Lions games how they can become a little bit loose and barbarians feeling, which is not what you want in a final test. You don't want to rotate too much that there's no cohesion, but I think I agree with the bones of what you're saying, that a little bit more management of minutes just to get the best out of these guys, especially when there is a negligible difference between like a very fit and primed Tom Curry and a fit and primed Hamish Watson. It's like those are 2 world-class players,
Johnny Hill, even at 100% or 90%, is going to outplay Alan Wynne Jones at 60 or 70%, and that's just true. The difference between, like, as good as Alan Wynne Jones is, and maybe he's sort of this talismanic figure, but the point stands across the team. Like, if they're not at 100% peak fitness, if they're a little match weary, I think you're better off getting one of the fresher guys, because they're all quality. Everyone on this tour is quality. I don't think there's anybody who would really, really struggle out there with the Boks. I think probably harshly, and I know Welsh fans will get on me, I probably harshly think that Navidi might struggle a little bit with the sheer raw power of the Boks. But to be honest, Big Ian Henderson as well did struggle in his game.
He did.
But I think the likes of Hill, I think certainly the likes of Beard, the likes of Hamish Watson, like, getting those guys in. Even Faletau has had limited minutes so far.
Yeah.
Like, they're all well able to mix it, and those guys at 100% could have been an option, but that's not the way they went, and this is the team they have, and that's just the way it is.
That could prove costly. The ones that I'm glaring at as well are the backs. Like, backs don't win games in it typically, but I just find it very dubious. I'm happy for Bundy Aki. Him and Robbie in together shifts Robbie out to 13. Bundy's physical. I think that could work. I can't understand what Daly has done to earn the trust that he has. Like, the 23 jersey is a useful jersey. 23 is a bit of tempo in the wide channels, and as far as I can see, I've watched both tests now. Elliot Daly has performed poorly in both, like literally has not succeeded in any play to get any inroads at all. That's all I've watched from is him getting wrapped up and smashed by Am.
It's kind of a similar bench spot to Mornay Stain maybe in that way, where Mornay obviously struggled in that A game, but he could be the guy to come on and kick the winning goal.
But the one kick he's had from range was in Test 1 and fell short. Like, he hasn't got
but he was a little rocked
because he got cracked a phase before. Like,
if you're bringing Finn Russell on, who's your goal kicker?
Yeah, maybe that's the question. Yeah. Maybe that's the reason. But it's still, I would rather have a Louis Rees. Like, it's planning for, like, I get the Conor Murray and Finn Russell. maybe they gel very well together, but it seems like a halfback pairing made in hell.
Yeah, no,
like,
they won't vibe off each other at all. But I don't think they'll bring them on together. I think that's context dependent. I think if things are going badly and they're not able to get things off on offense and they need points, you'll see Finn. If things are going a little well, you'll see Murray perhaps first. And also Murray's there just in case Ali Price is very cold, which he sometimes
is, but then there's no Gareth Davis.
Yeah, I would have had
he's
Gareth
not able to take.
I'm the only man who likes Gareth Davis.
Yeah, it seems so. The Welsh like him. He's quick. That's what I'll say for him. But yeah, I think I just don't understand the Daly thing, and I also think there's kind of a weird double standard. Like Hogg played well in Test 1. He played poorly in Test 2, particularly in the second half. It was crying out for Liam Williams, so he's straight out of there. Like Hamish Watson came on in Test 1, didn't quite have the desired impact, had that tip tackle, went backwards in a few contacts. He's out for the rest of the series. But Elliot Daly doesn't do anything well the whole series, and he's there for the whole time. I don't understand. Especially when you have guys like... Well, Josh Adams is in correctly this time, and maybe the extra Welsh will help them be a bit more clinical when they get the outside edge. But flyers like Louis Rees-Zammit not getting a look in, meanwhile Elliot Daly's there the whole time. I was flagging it even as the squad was named that I didn't understand, but he seems to have a plan for him.
He's a utility option. I can't understand it. He's a utility option. He's a clutch goal kicker. I know he missed that one in the first test.
I'll eat my words if he kicks the winning goal, but I don't think it'll come down to that.
I agree with you. Like he had that rough tackle from Am in the first test. He has been struggling. Even in that A game, he got smashed out of play by Am off the bench at one point as well. He's probably not quick enough to deal, especially in the 13 jersey, just to deal with the blitz and the pressure that a guy like Am brings. He's probably not got that play. He's also more suited to play in the back three.
He'd need the footwork of a Colby to evade him, which he doesn't quite have. You know,
no,
I'm piling in on him, but that's one that I'm scratching my head at because I think there's a lot of resources being ignored for the sake of having him in there, and I just don't think it'll pay dividends, to be honest. I don't think
maybe not. I'm happy to see Doohan keep his jersey. I think that makes sense actually because of how well he and Ali Price worked in that first test.
True.
And yet I'm also happy to see the other two Welsh lads come in. Anthony Watson just hasn't been happening for him. He got lost under the high ball for much of that second half. He also had one moment where, like in any other game, he was away, where he got to the outside edge and took the outside shoulder and started to unload, and it looked like he was going to do one of those classic Anthony Watson things where he just takes the outside, gasses his man, puts the footwork on, and he just got smashed by Am. And it was like at that point I was like, it's not happening for you. This isn't your series. Maybe next time, Anthony. So him out of there, and the very, very hot red hot Josh Adams out, it makes a lot of sense. And Liam Williams, who's I'd say so hungry to go here at this
changes the dynamic of the high ball game, which has been the dynamic as well.
He's one of the few players who the Bok fans I think genuinely respect as well. He's got a couple of plays off the box. I've been seeing some Bok comments on him going like, "Oh, this is a better team." I've been quietly hoping that Liam Williams doesn't feature, and here he is in the biggest game possible. I do love that selection.
That's true.
And there's lots to love about this team. I mean, you gloss over Maro Itoje in there, who's on his day the very best player in the world.
He's up there
and
for
could render all of this moot by just turning it on and dominating.
Indeed, much the same way. Like when was it? 8 years ago when all the talk was about Bod being dropped, but it's like Corbisiero came in and won that test from Loosehead. You know, it's decided way inside of all of that. It was scrum. They just scrummed them off the ball all day. So it could be Itoje at the maul as well in this story. It could yet be that it doesn't matter who the backs are that they have on the bench. The backs don't matter anyway. Certainly the Springboks would agree with that. The forwards win games, backs decide by how much, that old adage. But then just the last note on the Lions selection is that for the first time the starting 15 actually reflects where they finished respectively in the Six Nations table. That was kind of bamboozling. Maybe we have 6 Welsh, 4 Irish, 3 English, 2 Scottish in the starting 15, which is an accurate representation.
Scotland were ahead of England though, were they not?
Oh yeah, they were actually. See, more accurately though. I'm more zeroing in on the Welsh.
One of the things that amuses me, and it's probably just an accident of circumstance, but just as an Irish fan, like you watch our pack win every single one of its battles, like Cian Healy, Kelleher and Tadhg Furlong, functionally the best front row in the Six Nations this year, won all of its scrum battles, won all of their battles around the breakdown, and then you watch the Irish backs like fail to make any of it count because they can't stick passes, and yet the Lions rolls round and it's all Irish backs and the odd Irish forward. I mean, that element of it's a bit weird. It's like we're a team that the pack works really well, and the back line is a mess, and yet the backs are the ones who get the look in. But I suppose contextually it does make some sense. I mean, Murray's the guy I would have been like, maybe get him out of there, but everyone else, I suppose there is some good sense there. But I suppose we will now park the squads. I mean, that was a quite a long rant about them, and listen, it'll all be decided by what happens on the pitch, and we're going to look now through the game sort of from the point of view, the tactical point of view of each side, and we're going to start with the home side, the hosts of the series, Boca, the Springboks, who obviously came on very, very strong last week. They're not shy about what they want to do. They just want to do it really, really well.
That's right. Yeah, well, we saw it in Test 2. That was their picture. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But it definitely is for the Boks. Yeah. They managed to slow the game down. The first half took more than an hour to play. They were fracas off the ball. Every break in play was instigating something. There was all kinds of this going on. There were low scores, no tries in the first half. The Lions came close, but they were stymied by a good defensive play. And then in the second half, with their energy there, they managed to turn the screw. A few key set pieces that they won, starting to edge the contact area, the scrum, the line out, the bench makes its impact, and you ultimately blow your opponents away. And that's definitely what they want to see in Test 3 in the decider. It's much the same again. It's built on pressure, kicking and defence, which is kind of the MO for all of them, and their defence still yields a lot of points, but also maintaining that discipline, which they were much better at in that second half in last week.
Oh, it's massive. It's absolutely huge for them. Managing their way through the first half as they did last week, and then striking in the second was just a much better picture for them. Their traditional picture has been to strike hard and strike early. It's interesting to see Gatland talk this week about wanting to see the Lions move the ball a little more, bringing a scrum half in who can bring a bit of tempo, bringing a guy like Aki in who might try and sit them down,
bringing like Williams and Adams out there.
Obviously I think primarily the challenge is going to come in the air, but in those initial sequences, if the Boks can just render any notions the Lions have of moving the ball crisply against their defence null and void, as they have done so far.
Well, that very opening test with the Elliot Daly shot you were citing, that was their first attempt of the test series to go wide, and it ended with them getting cracked at 13 by Am, and that was it then.
And even inside of that, like you've had Malcolm Marks is later in the game, but you've had these tremendous counter rucking approaches from the Boks. You had these super tackles on the inside, just basically rendering it all moot, stopping the Lions from moving the ball early and hard. That is obviously a key picture for them. But more is the point, is just this aerial game. The Lions are going to bomb them. They're going to be sending Liam Williams this time down the throat, Robbie Henshaw, Bundy Aki,
Adams, who's no mug himself in the air. He's better than Watson in the air and the high ball, I would say.
100%. There's a lot of quality in that Lions team, and I think as much as Gatland wants to talk about playing, they'll probably try and take advantage of some chaos opportunities a little more, the Lions. But the main way that they've gotten inroads, first of all, is by exploiting ill discipline, and second of all is with the kicking game. And as much as the Boks won the kicking game, it is tough when Bigger has it on a string and he's got class players like Williams chasing down at 100 miles an hour.
It's a big task because a lot hinges on their fullbacks performance, and Villy's been great so
far.
And
Andre Pollard. Pollard has been back there a lot and has been trying to bail them out. But Colby down that left hand side, like Duhan van der Merwe, has without question been, I mean, he lost a couple in that last game, but for the most part he's been pretty imperious in the air. He has the height advantage over just about everyone on the pitch, but particularly Cheslin Colby on his wing. That's an area the Lions are really going to be going after. If the Boks can shut down that, as they did in the second half, claim those high balls, diffuse them, take that away from the Lions, then you make the game very, very difficult for the Lions to get inroads.
Suddenly you'll see the Lions have very little else in their multi-phase if you can manage to disarm them there. And similarly, like Daragh will have to play really well coming in, but you still have Mostert in his. He's in to cover Peter Steff, but that's like at maul time. I'd still say his read and his counter mauling will.
They'll
be
have to be
important.
as sharp. I mean, the Lions were pretty confident in their maul in the first game. They got caught in the hoop a few times in the second game. I think they'll go back to it in a big way in this game, and that is just a huge area. Like Etzebeth has had a couple of bad moments in the defensive maul where Itoji has essentially managed to get him on the wrong side, pivot the maul around him, and prevent him from getting through onto the ball. That's
not a good look.
It's not a fun look, and the Lions have a very, very efficient maul. De Jager and Mostert coming in there and shutting that down massive area that they're going to have to focus on, winning those little wrestling matches, getting through onto the ball, shutting down that Lions maul. If you can hold the discipline, these are the three main areas. If you can hold the discipline on defenses and just check your run, you still have a class defense. But mind the tackle height. They got away with some stuff in that first half the last time. They were a little frantic. And if they're a little frantic this week, I suspect Mr. Frenchman might not be just pinning them. He'll be doling out cards left, right and centre.
You could see more cards this week, for sure.
If the Boks are loose, it could be fatal in the first half. They have to mind the tackle height. They have to mind the offside. If they can hold their discipline and they can defuse the high bombs and stop the Lions maul, they will render them, in all likelihood, unable to burst in and get any inroads. And that for me is the beginning of the picture. I mean, ideally, like, we can talk romantically about the Bok offense, and they did that. Mapimpi try was really well worked, but primarily what they're about is edging the kicking game and then just exploiting. They have main ways of scoring are either through chaos ball off a kick, off a high bomb. We have lethal wingers who, when the chaos opportunity presents itself, they fancy taking it.
They do.
And then the maul, and the set piece, and that if they can get on top in those areas, win those wrestling matches.
That's normally where their 3-pointers come. Their tries more often than not will from chaos like that, or like a charge down, as we saw in the South Africa A game.
The defense yields tries.
Defense yielding tries, a pick or a charge down.
The Lions won't even get as far as 13.
Probably not because of that fear. That is it. The Boks are more than happy to kick it, even sometimes just chipping it away. Like, not much accuracy. Certainly not as much thought and precision goes into it as a Conor Murray box kick, where you're setting up the caterpillar ruck. Sometimes it's just faff, just dinking it away. We don't want the ball. It's early days. You have the ball. We're going to smash it.
On this occasion,
Reinach on this occasion, but I'd say the result will be much the same. They'll be kicking a lot of the ball, particularly in the first half, and trusting their defence to apply that pressure and that squeeze. The other thing about having a French ref in there, obviously they need to watch their tackle height. That's one that they could be punished for, but conversely, if they can get a scrum performance similar to what they got last week, they will get rewards from it. The French ref will reward a team scrumming. We haven't
seen the best of France Malherbe yet in this tour as well, and that is a very interesting battle because Wyn Jones is a very fine operator. He's in great form.
He was back from a slight injury.
He was doing very well, and he did well in the A game. Malherbe is a different kind of animal on his day. He is a better scrummager perhaps than any other tight head in the world. There's Tupou, there's Furlong, and there's Malherbe, and then there's the rest as far as the tight heads of the world are concerned right now. But Malherbe on his day is just another level at scrum time, and that is an area like Wyn Jones and the Six Nations did have some ropey days. If Malherbe can bring just a level of power.
He managed to game some scrums. Wyn Jones doing good tactical stuff, but sometimes raw power can kind of surpass all of that.
It's another level. If he can bring that, if he can turn every scrum into a penalty, into a kick to the corner, and that's one thing that, like, there was moments in that game that as much as the non-calls of foul plays helped them from a Kiwi ref perspective, one of their other bad habits is not rewarding dominant scrums, and there was a few times that O'Keefe was just like refusing to reward the scrum that's going forward. The French refs do appreciate a good scrum, and they do appreciate a clear picture at the scrum. They're less likely to go like boring in against a team that's driving forward. They'll just give it to the team that's moving forward, and if the Boks can get their scrum rumbling, then it could be a very long day for the Lions. And that's really their picture. They will take threes early doors. They're not going to force the issue, but they're just going to look to edge the game, win those tight exchanges, then find those sort of tries either from the defense, from the maul, or occasionally from the crossfield kicking game, but mostly just from the chaos game.
Yes, indeed. It also involves being, as you say, discipline on your own kind of defense. No need, like, you're still going to bring line speed, but don't jump early. Those cheap offsides killed them in the first test, but just those cheap entrances in general. They don't need to do it. They're on top of this Lions team as it stands in terms of their defenses winning the battle against their offense. You don't need to rush it. You're actually much better off letting them have the ball in the middle third for a wee while and just trusting your defense. Don't give away a pen. Don't get too aggressive at the breakdown either. Mapimpi was guilty of it a couple of times in the first half last week.
That breakdown does kill them sometimes.
It does. They're over enthusiastic.
I mean, it kills the Lions. Like in the last few games, the breakdown has been so savage. Like it's cost them the odd penalty, but geez, it's been such a net positive for them. You'd be reticent to change it.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that in general it's on the Lions offense to show something before the Bok defense overexerts itself to the extent that they give them free entrances.
Yeah, exactly.
I think by and large the Lions are going to be kicking the ball in the air, and it's on the back three. It's on the Villy LaRue and Pollard, who lines up there often enough, and Visa
and Colby and Visa, who will drop back. I'd say Khaleesi might be roaming a bit too, because Mostert obviously is in for Peter Steff. I don't know if he's going to occupy the same position in the wide channels that Peter Steff was when they had ball in hand. I would expect to see a more free roaming Khaleesi in that kind of environment. And
maybe you will see Mostert out there, as well. They do like their patterns, and I wouldn't mind seeing it. He's still got some skills on him. It would definitely be a curious picture, but I think outside, maybe from 30 to 5 out will be as brave as they get as far as really putting on a multi-phase show. Mostly it's going to be kicks, pressure, winning those battles. And Liam Williams is going to be a real problem for them in that regard.
Well, they need to kind of move him around, manipulate those guys. Obviously Josh Adams is in, he's going to be straight in. It's less coordinated. The Welsh wingers can come high. If you can kick for grass, you don't always have to kick contestable like this, and they don't even kick contestable.
Pollard is certainly the better kicker of the bunch, and he definitely sees the game better than any of the rest of that Bok team as far as the kicking game is concerned. But even to be honest with you, they just kicked to counter ruck. I mean, there was a great example in the first half when they just whipped it wide, just dropped the ball on the toe, and Hogg got the ball under pressure, and they just poured over the ball
just
and
absolutely bludgeoned through. Khaleesi's are great at that skill, but so they all are. They recognise a slightly weak maul or a ruck with only backs in it, and they can just blitz it. No need for hands in this ruck. We're not picking the ball up. We're just driving these Lions out of the way. It's a defense pressure game that we know very well at this point. But if they're to paint their picture successfully, they will start edging the scrum. They will start getting their maul going, and then it'll be the second half. If they're to score a try at all, I think it'll be second half when things start to open up that you might see Mapimpi or maybe even Colby this time get on the board. But I think it's likely to be a slower, kind of more physical 3-point based game for large periods of this, and the Boks are cup final footy, which the Boks are great at.
It's true, but they didn't have to play a match after they exerted themselves, the week after they exerted themselves quite as much as last week, and they will have to mind their energy levels. If the Lions are coming at them, winning a few exchanges, getting entrances, Itoji's making plays on them, will the heads drop? Will they get naive and start compounding errors with more and more penalties? Will they have the ability to check themselves and relax and keep that defensive hustle going such that they can keep the score down and weather those moments?
Big job for Khaleesi to mind his troops and manage their temperament. Obviously,
their concentration and energy, replicating a performance as good as the second half one from last week. It is a major challenge for this team. It's a major challenge for any rugby team, especially one that relies so heavily on attrition. As impressive the physical specimens that the Boks are, it is a hell of a job for them to replicate that, especially against guys like Itoji, who will now be jilted from last week. The ball's back in the Lions' court. Can the Boks manage the game such that they're at the fever pitch? I mean, it all sounds good on paper. We win them all, we win the scrum, but what happens if you're not winning either? How do you respond? How do you see through that game?
If the Lions do manage to string things together and go into a lead, they did that in the first test, and the comeback was very impressive from the Springboks as well, but it's like, are we going to be scoring? We hope to not see that end of game cardio issue that we saw in the South Africa A game and Test 1. They managed to slow it down sufficiently in Test 2 that they were the ones with the second half showing. I don't know, if they go 10 points down in a helter-skelter start, how do they manage their way back in? That's a tough question. Ideally it doesn't come to that, but to be prepared for it is one of the things that they will have to face. Even if not this week, then in the weeks to come against these rugby championship teams as well. How this team come back into it, especially with a bit more weather in them, when you're missing your Faf, you're missing Peter Steff, all of these guys. I'm curious to see that. I'm not sure if we will see it this week. In fact, I think it's as you say, it's on the Lions to show something. It's on the Lions offense to show something before the Springbok defense or game plan has to adjust at all, because I think they've kind of had them in their back pocket so far. And
from a defensive point of view, if they can just cut out the errors. But that broadly speaking is the Bok picture. You know it well, you love it, you hate it. You gotta respect it.
You love it, you hate it, you love to hate it. I don't know. I respect the hell out of it, and I don't mind looking at it either, because I think the way they defend is just so next level. As you were highlighting, like their scramble when some decent Lions passing reaches what you think is the outside, but there are still 3 Bok men there, and it's like, how do you get outside these guys? Maybe Finn Russell is the answer. Who knows?
It's very tough, but I think pivoting on then to look at it from the Lions' point of view, I mean, we will touch on their offense, but it's hard to call the offense the headline in this series. This series has thus far been about kicking game and set piece and grunt and playmaking in the tight areas.
Yeah, collision zone, breakdown, maul. Yeah, all of this stuff, scrum,
and
line out.
and the aerial game. Yeah. I mean, the picture was painted pretty clearly in that first test. I know they ended up they shipped a decent lead early doors in that first test, but they managed to keep the ball in play time really high. They kicked in field. They limited the box to 4 lineouts, and that came first of all from minding their own discipline, not giving them cheap abilities to set up their own lineout mauls from penalty kicks. But more is the point. They kicked in field. They kicked to recover. They caused problems. They were more. They set up scrums for themselves or recovered the ball. They did not give the box lineouts, which they really do love to reset from.
Yeah,
that was definitely a key strategy that worked really well. They'd be optimistic of the Ali Price, Duhan van der Merwe, like that little box combo. Kick symmetry.
Yeah, Duhan v Colby in the air is just a good matchup for them. Similarly, Williams v Villy LaRue is one they'll fancy too. If they can manage to land a ball on a spot where Villy is and get Liam Williams up after it, they'd fancy their chances of winning that.
I expect to see them working similar plays to that in, like, rather than going from the box kick from midfield, I expect them to work some bigger bombs with Liam Williams chasing off them.
Yeah.
I mean, Sexton and Johnny Sexton and Rob Kearney in their later career had a really great telepathy for Sexton putting up bombs up for Rob Kearney to chase.
Yeah.
Bigger and Liam Williams have something similar going on in Wales, and if Bigger can just land them on a sixpence with Liam Williams chasing them, he probably, with the momentum coming on, he wins that most of the time.
I think so.
Like that is a real key point of entrance for them. I know they've talked about playing a bit more rugby. I think there's ways they can do that, especially off. If they can recover one of those kicks, the next phase, can they be brave? Can they find the seams? And then the other thing is, like, we talked about the scramble D of the box. It is about the only inroads they've had is when you can sit them down a little bit, and like I talked about the outside shoulder, Peter Stephan, inside arm, outside of that forward blitzer, be it Mostert or whoever it be, sitting down that sort of Pollard, that kind of area where Pollard is. Hard lines.
Bundy Aki,
perhaps. Like the old school Jamie Roberts line, but harder. Bundy Aki ran a great one in one of the warm-up matches. I think it was the first game they played. He ran this like cutting line. It might have even have been against Japan, but I can't quite remember who it was against. This cutting line where he was nearly running sideways. He was coming from so far out, picking those short lines. Those are the kind of lines we need to see him and Henshaw running, just to sit down that defence, get over the gain line, and then recycle the ball quickly. And the other area that they're just getting killed at the moment is their own offensive breakdown. Like nothing works. If they can't, if every third ruck they're getting isolated and turned over, nothing works. This is where guys like, I know Wyn Jones likes to carry, but Tyg Furlong certainly, Courtney Laws certainly, guys with a bit of heft and a bit of spring, like Tyg Furlong's the best offensive cleaner they have. Tom Curry has really struggled in a couple, like he's played very well, but there was a couple of those breakdown penalties that the box got that Curry was there and didn't shift his man. They have to come in, they have to be technical but brutal in those offensive breakdowns. Don't let the box in. Don't give them a sniff. Support your man. Sit them down. Clear the ruck quickly. Focus really hard. Like, a real point of focus has to be, if they want to play any rugby at all, focusing on the offensive breakdown, not letting the box get such easy entrance to their ball.
Over them on their ball, which they have done. Certainly towards the end of the last test, they were just dominating that area.
And if you can do that, then, if you can clear the rucks, sit them down, get a little bit over the gain line, and get the ball out quickly, they'll jump offside. They will. Virtually every time they'll jump offside, and then you'll get a penalty, and then you get to kick to the corner, and then you get to set your picture.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would agree with all that as the inroads. That's pretty much what we've seen. We've seen it sometimes work for the Lions in Test 1. We've seen it very much not work for the Lions. But we've seen some of their lack of cohesion get punished. That's kind of it. Like their multi-phase, when they try and up the tempo, it's them who become disorganized first. Like the box don't, unless, as you say, you manage to just sit them down very quickly and move it quickly, and then they will jump off. That's the recourse, is that you will manage to get that penalty, but beyond that, when they go frantically phase to phase to phase like they did at the end of Test 2, they end up just getting isolated and turned over. That's the net result of all that. They don't really create anything and they get turned over.
But sitting them down, catching them offside, entering then, and also the kicking game to gain access and inroads, very, very important. The other area that I think the Lions, obviously we'll talk about, like the offensive maul is so important, the scrum is so important, holding that stuff together. We mentioned it when we were talking about the box, all of those nuts and bolts set piece areas. But there's a tactical element to this as well, where like they painted some or all of that picture in certainly that second test in the first half of it.
Yeah.
But they weren't clinical and they didn't find the try. And I think in every game, including the South Africa A game, they've had a chance. Like, the Boks bring such a tremendous amount of energy that their weak point comes about 30 minutes into the first half. From that last 10 minutes before half time, they noticeably lack a bit of energy and they need the tunnel. You can see they need the tunnel. They're trying to slow everything down. They're just kicking. They're like, okay, we've had our game. We want half time now, and then we'll play the second half game. The Lions have had chances to score tries in just about every time they've met the Boks just before half time. They did a great job of it against those club sides. They used to pile on the points.
Yeah.
But in these games, what tends to happen is that they hustle a bit,
make their way all the way up into the 22.
Get their entrance, catch the Boks in a penalty situation, and then kick their three and take whatever it is, a 3, 6, or 9 point advantage. I don't mind kicking threes in the early exchanges, especially against a team that starts as fast as the Boks do. But just before half time, right where Henshaw dropped that ball, they need to. I think that is the period clearly.
Well, yeah. If the Lions need to win this, if they need to take a try to take this series, like, it's not, they're not going to win it 15-12 and all kicks. I think if it's 15-12, the Boks are the ones on 15.
More than likely.
I think if they can grab that try just before half time, it throws a spanner in those works and it makes things a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And you're right that, like, you need to choose your moments for that kind of play, but that is the moment, because the Boks do start so helter skelter and they do noticeably fatigue a bit towards that
and
period.
They're relieved, they accept once the Lions are in their 22. First of all, the Lions never look more likely to score than when they're right up on the line. It's not like they're scoring from deep. They haven't been against this Bok defence.
They haven't seen much by way of strike move either, off set piece. First phase strike move, haven't seen
anything.
Yeah.
They tried one in the last game, which was Henshaw running a Henshaw line, and actually the Henshaw line was there for him, but the move said he had to pass it inside to Duhan, who got smashed by Khaleesi, and that was that move. That was as good as it got. But like, from close range, their maul has been excellent and has yielded a try.
Their Exeter ball has been effective. Their pick and jam.
In that A game, you saw it yield 2 yellow cards, that was very interesting to see. I mean, I think that is a real area that they could look at if they can hold their discipline. I really do wonder what would have happened in that last test if, instead of kicking that 3 to go 9-6 up before half time, they just kept the foot on the gas. I mean, that was the one time they went to the corner in that game, because it was that period when the Boks were down and out. And the first thing that happened off the base of that scrum was that Faf gave away a red card. Now, tough luck, the ref didn't see it, didn't get picked up, but why not keep the foot on the neck? Why not go again? I know it's tough, and if Mostert steals your ball, then that's 3 points out the window. But I think in those key moments, the Boks have never looked more vulnerable than just before half time. They've got to put the foot on the neck and find that try in those moments when they're down in the red zone, which they have invariably been towards the end of the first half.
They've been good at getting entrances.
Get that try. You need it.
Yeah.
You need that try.
They definitely need a try. If they're going to win, and they need at least one. I don't know if they're going to find it or not, but they definitely need at least one. They have a few good things to spring from the bench. Obviously, you were highlighting Wyn Jones needs to lock it down. Similarly, Mako and Sinclair off the bench need to perform better than they did last week. The scrum will be so vital. There's no future for them if they start getting dominated towards the tail end of the second half at scrum time.
And they do have to think about when they want to introduce certain players as well, and obviously that'll be context dependent. If Malherbe is context, they got it very right in week 1, as opposed to the Boks, whereas the Boks got it very right in week 2, and they were a little off in their decision making. It's such a result for the Lions if they can get the Boks making changes early. Like, if they can get the Boks making changes before 50 minutes, that is such a win for the Lions. The bomb squad really is most functional from about 20 to 25 out. If they can stretch that out to 30 to 35, I think the difference tends to be just marked. It's astronomical, really. It's true. Similarly, just going to highlight again Itoje versus the Springbok Maul. It's just worth the price of admission alone as far as this test series is concerned. Just high level stuff. Now that you have Diager in there, you have Etzebeth, Diager and Mostert in like one of the more elite line-out units you could ever think to pick as well. But you also have Ken Owens back in, you have Alan Wyn Jones, Itoje, you have Courtney Laws out there. There's a lot of elite in this line-out matchup, and for the game, for rugby purists, it is all about set piece. It is a basics kind of game we've been treated to from these Lions teams. You can see like even Ian Foster throwing shades in and puts him to sleep. Certainly not the All Blacks mantra, but to the more accurate team go the spoils in those kinds of things, and I think that's what it'll come down to here. Yeah, they need to fix that the defensive maul woes that were really plaguing them. But a couple, it was defensive maul woes that were costing them, but also their own
their own line-out calling got goofy. When it needed to be. It needed to be tight. Needed to be, even if it was jump at 2 to secure the pill, do that first.
Yeah.
But some of the goofy calls in the second half really did cost them, because they're all little momentum staggering.
Yeah, they were going to the back sometimes with, I don't know, some romantic dreams and losing that ball, and then the pop passes to the front of the line out, you can just retire them. But
goofy, not working. Goofy line out call is goofy, gets punished.
Absolutely, But like, I mean, it's not dissimilar to the Boks in that they're going to want to win that aerial game to get entrances. They're going to want to spoil at line out time. If Itoje can have a similar game, I mean, we talk about the Bok defense. In that first test, the Lions' scramble defense was sensational, and they shut the Boks down and they frustrated them, and they attacked the pill.
You have Henshaw at 13 now, where he defends a bit like more roaming, more good reads, speed and big wraps, or even just getting in the passing lane with a more robust, solid man in Bundy Aki inside him. They're similar picks. They're quite similar teams, the two of them, to be honest. There's a reason the games have come to this kind of little picture that they have, is that they're two teams playing very similar styles.
They are, and if Sanjay can defuse all those bombs, and Henshaw can shut down things on the outside, and then all of a sudden the Boks don't have those inroads. Itoje's stopping things up the middle. All of a sudden, where are the Bok points coming from if the Lions can hold their discipline? It's a similar kind of picture for them. They will need to try to win this game. I do maintain that.
I think.
But overall, I think they're well in the mix. I think they're going to need to deliver in the line-out area, in the scrum area. Those are so important, and they're going to need to fix the offensive breakdown if they want to get any plays off themselves.
That's first and foremost, because Ali Price will want to move them quicker than Murray. He won't settle for the pace that the Boks were able to establish early in Test 2.
No, and if they can keep the tempo frantic like they did in Test 1...
Tempo high is good for them. You can gas the Boks out, but as you say, it can't come at the expense of the offensive breakdown, because at a high tempo, even for 2 or 3 phases, they will end up getting poached if they're not accurate and effective on their clean-outs. With all that said, do you have anything else, or do you just want to think, how's this going to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to look very similar to
I think so.
to the other two games, but also, like, I think the Boks are going to be edging it. They're going to be all over them. They're going to score maul try after maul try, probably 30 points up. But then Finn Russell comes in off the bench on about 50 minutes with a little swish of the shoulders, and all of a sudden
6
things
tries.
things just a little chip and chase, and he regathers it, steps arm, fizzes out one of those beautiful 50-meter passes all the way across to the other wing.
Elliot Daly, who pops up with an unlikely try.
To rub your nose in it. And it's just the Finn show. So from 50 minutes on, Finn probably manufactures, I'd say, 5 or 6 tries.
So what, 45-40?
Yeah. I was thinking more 50-40, that kind of range. 40. Like the Boks have the 40-0 lead, but then Finn Russell just changes everything. I mean, that's my dream. I do love Finn.
That is a dream.
I would love. I certainly would prefer to see Ali Price and Finn Russell on the pitch together than Murray and Bigger. If it comes down to that, I don't love that, but I'm curious to see.
Not what I expect.
It's going to come down to a game breaking moment. I wonder how well Aki can get off against the Boks. I mean, as you say, they're similar teams, and the Boks are more familiar playing Bok rugby. I worry about the set piece. I'm hopeful that Itoje by himself can be just that determinative factor, and that Wyn Jones can hustle hard at the scrum and make it a non-factor.
And then Mako can come in off the bench and do a job, hopefully. Sinclair.
Do you rate Mako higher than Cock?
No, I rate him higher than Sutherland.
Sure, but I mean, that Saracens matchup is its own dynamic. I don't really see Mako winning that necessarily.
No, not necessarily, but if he comes on a little later, then maybe if there are just no scrums after he comes on, then maybe he gets a good few game plays in the loose. I expect there will be scrums. That it will be a big telling factor. I think it's going to be tight for a while. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be 12-all after 60 minutes, and for the game breaking moment to be a kick.
The question is, will the Lions play a bit more? Gatland has been saying we're going to try and play a bit more. Will they?
Subterfuge.
Because that's where it gets really interesting. Is can they get outside the Bok defense? That's the game I want to see. And is it does the Bok defense end up getting its defensive tries back, or do the Lions actually get some tries of their own out there? How does that play out? Or do they at all? I mean, what you're sort of suspecting is what happens often in these sort of final games of these series, is like what happened 4 years ago in New Zealand, is that everything
tightens up a little.
Everything gets cagey.
Sphincters kind of go like that.
Nobody's trying much, and then it does become a grind, and then it does become about who finds that sort of one play.
And a big turnover steal in the middle third, or a big scrum pen in the middle third could be the decisive factor.
A Chesla bouncing ball to Cheslin Colby, and that's all she wrote.
Or Josh Adams. fresh back in.
It's true.
Right. There's lethality out there for the Lions as well. Like, they can take a try if it comes their way, but they haven't been looking for it quite as much as the Boks.
The Boks have crossed the chalk a few more times than the Lions
they were
have.
held up 3 times in Test 1. The Lions have, as you say, never looked as dangerous as when they're setting a red zone offense, drive after drive, penalty advantage after penalty advantage, pressure game, much like Exeter bring. We haven't seen their razzle-dazzle. We saw them try it once early in Test 1, got it comprehensively shut down with a rib-shattering shot from Am, and that was enough for them to decide, that's not going to work. We're going to try something else.
Well, they've managed just the one try in the 2 games.
Yeah.
For that reason, I suspect I would put the Boks down.
I think
more likely to find the try to win the game, which is what it will take between the 2 of them. But I would add a Liam Williams, Josh Adams, and Finn Russell caveat to that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely tries in
and
this.
And Bundy Aki, if he can be the man to sit them down,
if he can be find that inside, if he can sit Pollard down and get through him, then maybe
sit them down.
I suspect that the Boks are going to win it by a score, not more, but just a score this time. I think it's going to be a good tight game. Not like I think the tempo will be similar to what it's been. I don't think it's going to be barbarian stuff we're seeing. Far from it. I think it's going to be tight. I just think, like, as much as people like to belie the Bok offense and their way of going about it, they look the more dangerous side than this Lions team. I've actually been more disappointed with the approach of the Lions in terms of you look at the acumen of some of these guys, you look at what the Welsh were doing all year in terms of just being lethal, you look at their back 3 just grabbing tries, not being in the game from a forward point of view, having 30% possession and still grabbing a try. The Lions have not approached the series that way. They've been more rudimentary.
I would caveat that by saying, like, my picture of a Bok win involves them having the fast start where they grab a couple of tries, like they often do. Last week was very much an exception to the rule, where this Bok team does like to strike early and hold on. And what I would say is, like, if the game is tight, it's in that sort of, unless the Boks get like absolute dominance at set piece, like, they are the team that's tired quicker by and large. And the Lions have that Itoje trump card. They also have Adam Beard and Sam Simmons to bring on, which is a potentially lethal loose forward combination.
That's true.
Like, I actually think in those dying minutes, you could see the Lions coming on stronger with Itoje and that incredible.
That's what we saw in the A game
20,
and in Test 1.
Exactly.
And if the Boks aren't successful in slowing down the game to the extent that they did in Test 2, then maybe fatigue plays its part.
I think probably the Boks, but I think it takes the fast start. I actually think if it's 9-9 at half time, it's advantage Lions, because the Boks are usually that fast starting team. I'll know it didn't play out that way last week, and I do think that the Lions should be looking for that try before half time. I still think that in that last 20 you expect to see the likes of Itoje coming through, the likes of Beard. I think it might be they might be the ones who finish the stronger, although end of a long season, so it's very hard to say.
Very hard to say. Who are you going then? Who you got?
I don't know. I really don't know.
No, neither do I. What do you think? Drop it in the comments down below. Do you have the Lions by 30, as you were saying? Do you have the Boks by 3? Who do you have winning it? I just make the Boks favourite by virtue of being at home, by virtue of all of these other intangible factors, but it's slight. I think they're a good matchup of a team. I think there's, as you say, 2 very similar teams playing a similar style, and it's been a bruising test series.
Maybe the Boks. I might go back to the Boks because of the point I made at the top about the Lions not changing their back row. Laws and Curry, and even Conan. I like Conan, obviously. I don't want to say an ill word about him, but all 3 of them might not be as good as they were. There's an element of diminishing returns to having to play every minute of every game for these guys, and that has been the case.
Such a physical, it's such a demanding job for the back 5 of a scrum to do. It's like the most demanding one in world rugby.
And I know the Boks have similar things, but they've injected enough difference, and also I just think they're sort of heftier and more used to it, and not coming off that long season. That I just think for that reason maybe the Boks just have that edge and win the set piece, and that might be the way that they win it. That's my picture, is that actually Wyn Jones doesn't hold up and the scrum goes to pot, and then the line-out maul goes to pot, and that's the way the Boks win it, a la World Cup final, just set piece dominance.
It's a simple game. You win the set piece,
but I don't know, it's not necessarily how it's going to go, but that's what I'll call anyway.
Okay, I'm hedging with you as well. I'm thinking Springboks, but I'm going to root Lions all the same.
Of course,
I'm going to hope that the Lions can get a famous victory going, but either way, just looking forward to that test. Now it's just this Saturday from Cape Town, the denouement of the Lions tour. It's been great covering it. It's going to end in spectacular fashion. There's going to be more controversy, I dare say.
Yeah, and it's been a great series. Everyone untwist the knickers, lads. It's been a great series. It's been a great rugby series.
Yeah.
Defense is interesting, and we will get to see fun offenses returning as well. It's been a great. I've really enjoyed every minute of it. Well, of the Test series, I've enjoyed every minute of it. And fair play to everyone for getting it going. And now all that's left to do is watch the game. I can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.